Ma'am, you need to stay back!
I am a doctor. Seattle General ER. How long has he been down? What happened?
Gun! Assault! That's all I can tell you. Please step back from the tape.
You ever see something so wrong, so backwards, that you can't believe it's real? That's what happened on a quiet spring evening in Seattle when a woman in hospital scrubs stood face to face with a badge, and everything that happened next would shake an entire city. Before I tell you what happened, I need you to do something. Drop a comment. Tell me where you're watching from. Because what you're about to hear, this could happen anywhere. This could happen in your city, your neighborhood, tomorrow. Now hit that subscribe button because what this doctor did and what came to light when people started asking questions, it's going to shock you. Let me tell you about Dr. Maya Chen. She wasn't just any 34-year-old trying to make it in the world. No. While most people her age were still figuring things out, Maya had already become one of the most respected emergency room doctors in Seattle. But here's what made her different. She didn't just treat patients. She saved people that other doctors had written off. The ones everyone else said wouldn't make it. Maya found a way. She graduated from Johns Hopkins, one of the best medical schools in the world. Then she did her residency at Mass General in Boston, top 3 emergency medicine program in the entire country. After that, she worked the busiest, most intense trauma centers in Baltimore and Boston, places where violence and accidents and tragedy walked through the door every single night. 9 years, over 10,000 emergency patients. Her colleagues called her the miracle worker. Not because she was lucky, but because she had this gift, this ability to keep people alive when everything said they shouldn't be. Maya specialized in emergency trauma. What does that mean? It means when someone comes into the ER dying from violence, from car crashes, from sudden disasters, Maya was the one who fought death itself to keep them breathing. She could read a person's body like a book. One glance, and she knew what was wrong. 1 second, and she knew what needed to happen. Speed. Precision. That was Maya's world. That particular Saturday in April, Maya was exhausted. She just finished a brutal 12-hour shift at Seattle General. 2 shootings. A major car accident. Someone's heart stopping right there in the ER. A dozen other emergencies. One after another, no break, no pause, just constant life and death decisions. She was running on coffee and adrenaline. Nothing else left. She was wearing navy blue scrubs, a dark jacket over them because Seattle in April is cold and unpredictable. Her hospital ID badge was clipped right to her scrub top. Photo. Credentials. Seattle General Hospital Emergency Medicine. Bold letters. Clear as day. Her stethoscope hung around her neck. She wasn't carrying anything fancy. No medical bag, just her phone in her jacket pocket and her car keys in her hand. The sky was gray, overcast. That time of evening when the light's fading, but it's not quite dark yet. The streets were busy. Weekend activity. People heading home. People heading out. Dogs being walked. Life happening. Maya lived about 15 minutes from the hospital. A working-class neighborhood. Row houses. Corner stores. The kind of place where people knew their neighbors' names. She was 2 blocks from her apartment when she saw the lights, red and blue, flashing against the brick buildings. A police car in the middle of the street. Yellow crime scene tape being stretched across the road. Maya slowed down. Force of habit, you know? 9 years in emergency medicine means you always look, always assess, always wonder if someone needs help. That's when she saw him. A man, lying on the street, on his side, not moving, dark stains spreading on the pavement beneath his head. Everything in Maya's training kicked in instantly. Male, maybe 30s, unconscious, head trauma, significant blood loss, not moving. She pulled over, parked, got out, started walking toward the scene. The officer standing near the tape saw her coming, held up his hand. This was Officer Ryan Mitchell. White guy, late 20s, for years on the police force. Average height, stocky build. The kind of cop who followed the rules exactly as he thought they were written without ever actually reading the rule book. Ryan had worked plenty of crime scenes. He knew the drill. At least he thought he did. Secure the area. Preserve evidence. Wait for detectives and paramedics. Don't let random people mess up the scene. Simple, right? What Ryan didn't know, what he had absolutely no idea about, was that his understanding was completely wrong. The Seattle Police Department had an actual written policy. Policy 4.17, Medical Emergencies at Crime Scenes. It was sitting in a binder somewhere. A binder Ryan had never opened since graduating from the academy. And this policy said, crystal clear, that medical emergencies take priority over evidence preservation. That licensed medical professionals should be allowed to provide emergency care when paramedics are delayed. That saving lives comes before securing crime scenes. But Ryan had never read that policy. His training officer hadn't emphasized it. His sergeant had never mentioned it. He was operating on what he'd picked up from other cops. And sometimes, what gets passed down cop to cop is wrong. Ma'am, you need to stay back, Ryan said. Maya stopped at the tape line. I'm a doctor. Seattle General ER. How long has he been down? Ryan looked at her, then at the victim, then back. About 10 minutes. Ambulance is on the way. Maya looked past him. She could see the man's chest moving. Shallow breaths. Fast. Too fast. What happened? She asked. Assault. That's all I can tell you. Please step back from the tape. Maya studied the victim. The way he was positioned. The blood. The breathing pattern. Something was very wrong. Has anyone checked his airway? She asked. Ma'am, I need you to move back. Officer, I'm asking if anyone has performed a medical assessment. EMS will handle it when they get here. When were they called? Ryan checked his watch. 9 minutes ago. Maya did the math in her head. Average response time for paramedics was 12 to 15 minutes for non-critical calls. This scene had probably been reported as just an assault, not a medical emergency. They might not even have a trauma unit coming. She looked at the victim again. His breathing had changed. Even more shallow. Rapid. Irregular. Bad signs. Really bad signs. I need to assess him, Maya said. Her voice was calm, but there was steel in it. No, ma'am. This is a crime scene. That man might be dying. EMS will be here soon. Soon might not be fast enough. Ryan's jaw tightened. Ma'am, I'm not going to ask you again. Step away from the tape. Maya pointed to the hospital badge clipped to her scrub top. Her credentials right there. Visible. Clear. Dr. Maya Chen, Emergency Medicine, Seattle General Hospital. I'm standing here in my hospital scrubs. I'm qualified to provide emergency care. That man needs medical attention now. Ryan glanced at the badge, but he didn't really look. Not really. Ma'am, I don't care if you're the Surgeon General. This is a secured crime scene and you need to leave. Quick question for everyone watching. Have you ever seen someone in authority who didn't actually know the rules they were supposed to follow? Type yes or no in comments. Maya felt frustration rising in her chest, but she kept her voice level. Professional. Officer, I understand you're trying to preserve the scene, but if that man has a serious head injury, every minute without treatment matters. I can do a basic assessment without disturbing evidence. Ryan shook his head. No civilians pass this line. Department policy. I'm not a civilian. I'm a licensed physician. You're not EMS. You're not fire department. That means you're a civilian. Maya gestured to her scrubs, to the hospital badge literally clipped to her chest. I'm in my work uniform. My credentials are right here. Seattle General Emergency Medicine. Ryan barely glanced at it. Doesn't matter. You're not authorized personnel for this scene. Maya looked at the man again. His breathing was getting worse. She could see it from where she stood, the chest rising and falling too fast, too shallow. The kind of pattern that meant the body was starting to fail. For God's sake, I'm a doctor, Maya said, her voice harder now. Let me help him. Ryan's voice got cold. Ma'am, I don't care what you are. This is a crime scene. Please back off. Maya tried a different approach. When was EMS dispatched? I already told you. 9 minutes ago. And when are they expected? Any minute now. Any minute could be too late. Look at his breathing. It's deteriorating. I can see it from here. The ambulance is coming. You are required to allow emergency care, Maya said, her voice sharp now. Ryan pulled out his handcuffs, held them up where she could see them. Last warning. Step back now, or you'll be detained. Maya stared at him. She looked at the handcuffs. She looked at the man on the ground, struggling to breathe. She looked at Ryan's face. He was serious. He would actually arrest her for trying to save someone's life. Then call your supervisor, Maya said quietly, because if he dies, that's on you. Ryan pointed to the sidewalk behind her. Ma'am, step behind the tape. Now. Maya didn't move immediately. She was calculating, running through options. The man needed help. The paramedics weren't here. This officer was refusing to let her through. She could push harder, get arrested, and the victim would still be lying there. Or she could step back, follow orders, and hope the ambulance arrived in time. Neither option was acceptable. She stepped back from the tape, but she didn't leave. She pulled out her phone and dialed 911. Ryan watched her. What are you doing? Calling to check EMS status, Maya said, this is a medical emergency, and they need to expedite. The 911 operator answered. Maya identified herself as a physician on scene. She requested an immediate upgrade to a trauma response for a head injury victim showing signs of respiratory distress. The operator confirmed. The ambulance was en route. ETA 3 to 4 minutes. Maya hung up. She stayed where she was, watching the victim from behind the tape. By now, people from the nearby houses had started coming outside. They heard the commotion. They saw the police lights. The street was filling up with people. Weekend crowds, neighbors, people walking by. Some of them were filming on their phones. A woman called out from the growing crowd. Let her help him. She's a doctor. Ryan ignored her. Another voice. What's wrong with you? She's trying to save his life. A man yelled, look at her badge. She works at Seattle General. The crowd was getting louder. More people gathering. More phones out. Ryan got on his radio, called for backup, said he had a hostile crowd forming and needed additional units. And then, the man on the ground made a sound, a wet, gurgling noise. Maya recognized it immediately. That was the sound of someone aspirating, blood or fluid in the airway. The sound of someone drowning in their own fluids. She started recording on her phone, pointed the camera at the victim, at Ryan, at the scene. If this man died, there would be a record. Officer, Maya said, her voice loud and clear for the recording. That man is aspirating. He's choking on blood or fluid. He needs to be repositioned immediately or he will die. I'm a licensed emergency physician. I'm willing to provide care. Are you refusing to allow me access? Ryan turned to face her. Ma'am, for the last time, step away. I'm asking you a direct question. Are you refusing to allow emergency medical care for a man who is actively dying? I'm securing a crime scene. That's not what I asked. Yes or no? Are you preventing me from providing emergency medical intervention? Ryan didn't answer. The wet, gurgling sound got worse. The man's body started to convulse. He's seizing. Maya shouted. He's going to die. Let me help him. Ryan looked at the victim. Panic was starting to show on his face now. Maya moved toward the tape line. Ryan grabbed her arm. Stop. Maya pulled away. Don't touch me. A man is dying. Ryan pulled out his handcuffs. Turn around. Hands behind your back. The crowd erupted. People shouting. Phones recording from multiple angles. You're arresting a doctor? Someone yelled. Let her save him. What's wrong with you? Ryan hesitated. He looked at Maya. He looked at the victim, who was now clearly in medical distress. He looked at all the cameras pointed at him. In the distance, sirens. The ambulance was finally close. Ryan made his decision. He grabbed Maya's wrist and pulled her away from the victim. "You're under arrest for interference." He cuffed her. The crowd booed, shouted. Some people were crying. Maya didn't resist. She let him cuff her. She stood there, hands behind her back, watching the man on the ground struggle for breath. 30 seconds later, the ambulance arrived. The paramedics jumped out. They saw the victim and immediately went to work. One checked vitals. Another prepared oxygen. Within seconds, they had him stabilized and were preparing for transport. The lead paramedic, a man named Carlos Martinez, who Maya had worked with at the hospital, looked up and saw her standing there, in her scrubs, hands cuffed behind her back. "Dr. Chen, what the hell?" "Officer here wouldn't let me provide care," Maya said calmly. "I tried to help. He arrested me instead." Carlos looked at Ryan with pure disgust. He turned back to his patient and got him loaded into the ambulance. Before they drove away, Carlos walked over to Ryan. "You stopped a doctor from helping? Are you out of your mind?" Ryan didn't answer. The ambulance left, sirens wailing. Do you think the officer realized how badly he screwed up? Drop a comment below. Ryan uncuffed Maya. "You're free to go," he said quietly. "I need your badge number, your full name, and your supervisor's name," Maya said, rubbing her wrists. Ryan gave her the information. Badge 3742. Ryan James Mitchell. Supervisor, Lieutenant Sarah Flores. "Thank you," Maya said. "You should know that man could have died because you prevented emergency medical care. I'm a licensed physician. My badge is literally clipped to my chest, and you arrested me for trying to help. I'll be filing a formal complaint to make sure this never happens to anyone else." She walked back to her car and drove home. The April evening was getting darker, the gray clouds making everything dim earlier than usual. Most people, if they have a confrontation with police, might complain to friends, maybe post about it on social media. Some might even consider filing a complaint, but then decide it's not worth the hassle. But Maya wasn't most people. She was a physician with institutional backing, legal resources, and video evidence of an officer violating both state law and departmental policy. The next morning, Maya went to the hospital and met with the legal department. She provided her account, showed them the video she'd recorded, explained the medical emergency she'd witnessed. The hospital's legal team immediately pulled the Seattle Police Department's own policies. What they found was stunning. The police department had a written policy. Policy 4.17, Medical Emergencies at Crime Scenes. It explicitly stated that medical care takes priority over evidence preservation. The policy specifically mentioned that licensed medical professionals should be allowed to provide emergency intervention when EMS is delayed. Ryan had violated his own department's written policy. The legal team also found Washington State Statute 23-412, which made it a misdemeanor to willfully obstruct emergency medical care. Ryan hadn't just made a bad call. He'd broken the law. A law he should have known because it was right there in his department's policy manual. The hospital filed formal complaints with the police department, the city attorney's office, and the state medical board. They included the video evidence, medical documentation of the victim's condition, and copies of the department's own policies that Ryan had violated. They also tracked down the victim. His name was Marcus Washington, 32 years old. He'd been beaten outside an apartment building. Skull fracture. Severe concussion. The paramedics' report noted that when they arrived, the victim was in respiratory distress and aspirating blood. Without immediate intervention, he likely would have died. Marcus was in the ICU for 3 days, but he survived. His family was informed about the doctor who tried to help and the officer who prevented it. The police department received the complaint on Monday. By Tuesday morning, Ryan was on administrative leave. Internal Affairs assigned the case to Lieutenant Sarah Flores. The same supervisor Maya had told Ryan to call. Sarah had been with the department for 16 years. She'd investigated hundreds of complaints. But when she pulled the body camera footage, she knew this was going to be bad. She called Ryan in for an interview on Wednesday. "Why did you refuse to allow Dr. Chen to provide medical care?" Sarah asked. "I was following crime scene protocol," Ryan said. "Preserve the scene. Wait for EMS." "What protocol?" Sarah pulled out a binder. "This is the department policy manual. Have you read it?" "I went through it in the academy." "Recently?" Ryan was quiet. Sarah opened to a marked page. Policy 4.17. Medical emergencies at crime scenes. She read aloud the section about allowing licensed medical professionals to provide emergency care. "When did you last review this policy?" I didn't remember that part," Ryan admitted. "You didn't remember that saving lives takes priority over evidence? Or you never knew it in the first place?" Ryan didn't answer. Sarah continued. "Not only did you violate department policy, you also violated state law. Obstructing emergency medical care is a criminal offense in Washington. Did you know that?" "No, ma'am." "You arrested a physician for trying to save a life. You handcuffed her while a man was choking on his own blood, and you did all of this while violating our own written policies. Do you understand how serious this is?" Ryan's face had gone pale. I thought I was doing the right thing." "You thought wrong. And you never bothered to check whether your assumptions matched actual policy." The interview lasted 68 minutes. By the end, Sarah had documented not just Ryan's actions that night, but a pattern. A disturbing pattern of officers operating on assumptions rather than actual policy knowledge. The investigation revealed something shocking. When Sarah randomly tested other officers on department policies, over 60% couldn't correctly cite the medical emergency protocol. Many didn't even know it existed. The department had the right policies. They'd been written years ago after consultation with medical and legal experts. But nobody had enforced them. Nobody had trained on them. Officers graduated from the academy and never looked at the policy manual again. Ryan had violated written policy. But the department had failed to make sure officers knew those policies existed. The investigation took 3 weeks. The findings were released in a detailed report. Ryan had violated Policy 4.17. He had violated Washington State Statute 23-412. He had demonstrated a fundamental lack of knowledge about the rules governing his job. He had endangered a citizen's life through ignorance of basic policy. The department recommended termination, but the report went further. It documented the systemic failure to train officers on existing policies. It noted that Ryan wasn't the only officer who didn't know the medical emergency protocol. It recommended mandatory annual training on all critical policies with testing to verify knowledge retention. Ryan was fired 3 weeks after the incident. He didn't appeal. His union representative told him the case was unwinnable. The body camera footage showed everything. The department's own policies condemned him. But there was more. The state attorney general's office reviewed the case and decided to prosecute Ryan for obstructing emergency medical care. Ryan pled guilty to a misdemeanor charge. He was sentenced to 100 hours of community service and a $1,500 fine. He also agreed to never work in law enforcement again. Marcus Washington, the assault victim, survived. His family filed a civil lawsuit against the city for the delay in medical care. The city settled for $285,000 rather than go to trial. As part of the settlement, the city agreed to implement the recommendations from the Internal Affairs report. Every officer would undergo annual training on critical policies, including medical emergencies at crime scenes. New officers would be tested on these policies before being allowed to work independently. Supervisors would conduct regular policy reviews at roll call. The policies didn't change. They didn't need to. They were already good policies. The department just needed to actually follow them. If you think more departments need to enforce the policies they already have, type facts below. Maya continued her work at Seattle General. The incident became part of her story, but it didn't define her. She kept saving lives, kept teaching residents, kept being the miracle worker in the ER. The video Maya recorded went viral 6 weeks later when the lawsuit was filed. It was viewed over 3 million times. Medical organizations shared it as an example of the duty to provide care. Legal experts analyzed it as a case study in governmental liability. Some people praised Maya for standing up. Others criticized her for confronting the officer. Some said she should have backed off when threatened with arrest. Others said she did exactly what her medical oath required. But here's what nobody could deny. She was right. The officer was wrong. And if she hadn't pushed back, Marcus Washington would likely be dead. Let's talk about what this really means. This story isn't just about one doctor and one cop. It's about a systemic problem that exists in police departments across the country. Good policies sitting in binders that nobody reads. Officers operating on assumptions passed down from other officers instead of actual written rules. Training that happens once in the academy and then never again. Ryan wasn't some rogue cop who wanted people to die. He genuinely thought he was doing his job correctly. He thought crime scene preservation meant keeping everyone out. Period. He didn't know his department had a policy saying the exact opposite. That's not just an individual failure. That's a system failure. Think about this. How many other officers are out there right now operating on bad assumptions? How many policies exist that could save lives or protect rights, but officers don't know they exist? How many people have suffered because departments write good policies but never enforce them? The body camera footage from this incident is now used in police academy training programs in 7 states. It's titled Medical Emergencies and Crime Scenes. Understanding your department policy. Civil rights organizations use it to educate communities about their rights during medical emergencies. Medical schools use it to teach students about the legal protections for providing emergency care. One confrontation on an April afternoon became a nationwide conversation about police training, policy enforcement, and the gap between what's written down and what actually happens on the street. Here's a question for you. How many times have you seen someone in authority who clearly didn't know the actual rules they were supposed to follow? Comment below. There's another crucial lesson here. Documentation. Maya recorded the encounter on her phone. The officer's body camera captured everything. Witnesses filmed from multiple angles, all telling the same story. Without those recordings, this would have been different. Ryan could have claimed Maya was aggressive or uncooperative. He could have justified the arrest with his version of events. It would have been his word against hers. But the cameras don't lie. They showed Ryan refusing to allow medical care. They showed Maya calmly explaining the emergency. They showed the victim choking while Maya stood there handcuffed. They showed everything. This is why recording matters. Why body cameras matter. Why citizen video matters. They create accountability that wouldn't exist otherwise. After the lawsuit was settled, several other incidents came to light. People who had tried to help at emergency scenes and been turned away by officers. Nurses, paramedics, even off-duty firefighters who'd been told to back off from situations where they could have helped. None of those incidents resulted in consequences because there was no video, no documentation, no proof. People had complained, but nothing happened. Maya's case was different because she had evidence. The hospital backed her. The media covered it. The video went viral. That's what forced accountability. But it raises a troubling question. How many people tried to help, got turned away, and had no way to prove it happened? How many lives were lost because officers didn't know their own policies and nobody held them accountable? Let's address something that came up repeatedly when this story spread. Some people said Maya should have just backed off when threatened with arrest, that fighting with police is dangerous, and she was lucky it didn't escalate. Here's the thing. Maya did back off initially. She stepped behind the tape. She called 911 to upgrade the EMS response. She did everything she could within the boundaries the officer set. But when the victim started actively dying, when she heard him choking, when seconds literally meant the difference between life and death, she made a choice. She tried to help anyway. Was it risky? Yes. Could she have been hurt? Absolutely. But she took that risk because her medical oath required it. Because a man was dying and she had the skills to save him. Not everyone would make that choice. Not everyone could. And that's understandable. But criticizing her for trying to save a life misses the point entirely. The problem wasn't that Maya pushed back. The problem was that she had to. The problem was an officer who didn't know his own department's policies. The problem was a system that had good rules, but never enforced them. So, what's the lesson from all of this? First, know the policies that govern the people in authority over you. Ryan didn't know his department's policies, but Maya knew the law. She knew her rights. She knew what was supposed to happen. That knowledge gave her the confidence to push back. Second, document everything. Record when you can. Get names and badge numbers. Create evidence. Maya's video was crucial to holding Ryan accountable. Third, follow through. Maya didn't just complain to friends. She filed formal complaints with multiple agencies. She used her institutional resources. She saw it through to the end. Fourth, understand that good policies mean nothing if nobody enforces them. The Seattle Police Department had great policies. They just didn't train officers on them. Enforcement matters as much as the rules themselves. Fifth, sometimes doing the right thing requires risk. Maya risked arrest to try to save a life. That's not something everyone can do, but it's something we should honor when people do it. As of now, Ryan Mitchell no longer works in law enforcement. He took a job in private security, then left that field too. He hasn't spoken publicly about the incident. Marcus Washington recovered from his injuries. He has some permanent cognitive effects from the head trauma, but he's alive. He credits Maya with saving his life by pushing for faster EMS response. Maya is still at Seattle General Hospital. She was promoted to Assistant Director of Emergency Medicine. She trains residents not just in medical skills, but in advocacy. How to fight for patients. How to navigate bureaucracy. How to do what's right even when someone with authority says no. The Seattle Police Department now requires annual policy training for all officers. Every officer must pass a test on critical policies, including medical emergencies at crime scenes, before their annual performance review. Supervisors conduct monthly policy briefings. Complaint rates about officers interfering with medical care dropped by 73% in the 2 years following implementation of the new training. The policies didn't change. The training did. The enforcement did. The accountability did. One doctor, one officer, 8 minutes, and a department was finally forced to follow the rules it had written years ago, but never bothered to enforce. That's what happens when someone knows the law and refuses to accept ignorance as an excuse. That's what happens when documentation creates accountability. That's what happens when systems are forced to close the gap between policy and practice. Final question for you. What's one thing you learned from the story that you didn't know before? Drop your answer in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. This story matters because it's not just about Maya and Ryan. It's about every time someone in authority operates on assumptions instead of actual rules. It's about every good policy that sits in a binder, unread and unenforced. It's about every person who died because someone didn't know the rules that could have saved them. Maya's story shows that you can fight back against ignorance masquerading as authority. You can know the rules better than the people enforcing them. You can document violations and demand accountability. And sometimes you can force systems to actually follow the good policies they already have. Not every story ends with accountability. Not every violation leads to consequences. But this one did. And that matters. The footage from that April afternoon is still available. You can watch a doctor calmly explaining a medical emergency while an officer threatens her with arrest. You can see the moment the victim starts choking. You can see what happens when policy ignorance meets medical necessity. And maybe, just maybe, the next time an officer faces a similar situation, they'll remember this story. They'll remember that their department probably has a policy about medical emergencies. They'll remember that saving lives comes first. They'll remember that good policies only work if people actually follow them. That's Maya's legacy. Not changing policies, but forcing a department to finally enforce the ones they already had. Not creating new rules, but holding people accountable for ignoring existing ones. Not revolutionizing the system, but making the system do what it was always supposed to do. This is the story of how a doctor fought an officer who didn't know his own department's policies and won. But more than that, it's a story about the gap between what's written and what's practiced, and what it takes to force those two things to align. Thanks for watching this story all the way through. If you found this eye-opening, make sure you're subscribed because I cover more stories like this that need to be told. Drop a comment letting me know what you think should happen when officers don't know their own policies. See you in the next one.